Listen, I
I'll go
like
back.
Bortles. He
I
took us to the AFC Championship. Well,
the,
I would argue our defense definitely carried us, but I mean, our
okay, but
offense
he
was
didn't
productive.
screw it up.
No,
Bortles didn't screw it up.
our
It's
offense
wild.
was
Man.
productive. Yeah,
Yeah,
it came down to the refs. There you go. I'll just
the
say it.
rats.
Miles Jack wasn't down. And then they called that pass interference on Gronkowski, which was just BS. And I think that set him up for a field goal before the half or a touchdown. I can't remember, but
Yeah, I
the
can't
refs were
remember. It
not
felt
on
like
our side. But yeah,
it was a
we'll
Cinderella
see.
season.
We'll see what happens. But I was a little surprised the draft rating we got. But like you said, I mean, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's production. So
I don't like, I mean, and again, I'm probably jaded on this one because the Rams have done so well since McVay got there in the late rounds that I'm just like, why do I want to pay? Why? I mean, first round, second round guys get paid a hell of a lot more than third, fifth, not undrafted guys.
right.
And we've been doing amazing stuff. Puka was what, barely
That
drafted,
was
fourth round, fifth round. Cooper Cup, fourth round, fifth
I
round.
wish we could get somebody like that, just one of those fourth, fifth round guys that just turn out to be monsters.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's also scheme. The scheme for
Yeah.
Puka, he's learning from Cup, he's learning from what Stafford wants, and Stafford's been around long enough to know what he's doing. So
Well, that's what you guys got such a veteran quarterback. I mean, you guys are so pass heavy too, which is interesting. I saw you guys picked up the Michigan running back too. I forget his name, but
we go through running backs like they're freaking tic
it
tacs.
was a good,
So
I think that was a good pickup for you guys as well. But, anyways, for those of you that are in here, sorry, we are avid football fans. I'm a Jacksonville Jags fan, and Jose here is a diehard Rams fan. So if you caught that
yep,
banner,
yep.
apologies. If you're not an NFL fan, I've been a Jags fan since I since I was born. At this point, since
God, yeah,
'96,
they have
since
been around.
'96. But anyways, we'll go ahead and dive into the presentation. Jose, I shared my screen.
Yep,
You able to see that? Awesome.
yep.
And appreciate everybody being on this webinar today. We're sort of doing it a little differently. Just to sort of reiterate, the company I represent is EPICompliance. Jose is a partner of ours. And this particular webinar, usually we talk about different compliance topics each week. But what we do here at EPICompliance is we try to streamline the compliance efforts for everyone as far as training, policies, procedures, business associate agreement management, and tasking. And let's put it this way, compliance, it's not a fun subject, right? But it's the cost of doing business. And if you're either an owner of a practice or work for a practice, you and I both know compliance is you got to have it. And we're here to help streamline those processes for you. So today we're going to talk a little bit about we just released a new version of our platform, and we're going to sort of discuss the new features that we've added. But anyways, we are going to do a little trivia question from last week's presentation, which for those of you that were on that one, we talked about the latest updates on the Change Healthcare consolidation and what's going
Which
on
of
with that.
course there was another update on that literally like 2 days after our chat last week.
Yeah,
So
what was that about? I know you sent the article over. They were
it's so they admitted that it was that they paid the ransom of $22 million. They admitted that it was multi-factor authentication was the issue, and that basically the hackers got old credentials from an old employee and then just went laterally through every single system and then got what they wanted and ransomware it out. They when they paid the ransom, they assume that every patient has been touched, but the CEO said that that's not the case, but there's no one really to be able to say otherwise until information starts popping up and people's data starts getting duplicated and hacked and taken over by somebody else. So
we'll probably
we
do
shall see how that goes.
right. We'll probably be we'll probably host at least one more webinar on that subject to close that gap. but what a
Yeah, I
bunch of
think so.
craziness.
Yeah, I think we've probably got one more before that cow's been milked.
Maybe have to get Don on there as well as a co-host because
Absolutely. So maybe two
she
updates and
was
Dawn.
heavily affected. Her practice was heavily affected by that cyber attack because there was it e-clinical requires them to use them. It's just
Yep.
what a nightmare.
It's yep. So
But anyways, we're gonna
yay,
dive
vendor
into
contracts.
we're gonna dive into the trivia question. So this is again for those of you that were on that webinar, take your or well, this was mentioned in last week's webinar, so you should have an idea. For those of you that were not on last week's webinar, you can always take a stab at this. But the trivia question for today is which federal U.S. District Court has Change Healthcare requested to consolidate the class action lawsuits it faces following the cyber attack? And the answers are A, U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York, B, U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Tennessee, C, U.S. District Court for the Southern District of California, and D, U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. Guys, feel free to put your answers in chat. Like I said, if you weren't on last week's webinar, doesn't hurt to take a guess. No harm, no foul. We won't call you out. We'll give you guys about 30 seconds to put your answers in chat. Jennifer, Leia, I don't know if you guys were on there last week's webinar, but hey, take a guess. Like I said, no harm, no foul. Give it another 10 seconds. Jennifer says C. Leia, got anything? Going once? Going twice? I like that. Leia said A for diversity. I love it. Love it. So great guesses, but the answer is actually B, U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Tennessee, and I'll explain why that is the answer. So Change Healthcare actually requested to consolidate the class action lawsuit it faces in this particular district. Why? They argue
It's their
that this
headquarters.
district is appropriate because that's where Change Healthcare is headquartered. So
Yep. So all the cases they're all over the place. I think every single US district court is represented, if not most of them are, because there's already 12 class action, not to mention the individual ones that'll get folded into the class actions. And so it'll be a whole thing.
they chose their home turf.
Yep. Yep.
But I appreciate you guys participating. And we'll go ahead and dive into the presentation. So let me get out of this. Jose, if you can just confirm that you can see. So again, welcome everyone to today's session. My name is Ray Walters, and I'm excited to be representing here at EPICompliance. I'm joined by my co-host and a gentleman that has over 17 years of experience in healthcare consulting, HIPAA security risk assessments, and he also is a mental telehealth business owner, Mr. Jose Delgado. Jose,
How's it going? How's it going? No, yeah, I mean, you covered it pretty well. But yeah, almost 20 years experience in the healthcare consulting background, mostly on the admin side. We do audits, we do you name it, we've done it for full service. So yeah, it's fun stuff. It's we constantly get into the trenches, and that's why we decided to move into again ownership of a practice, so that way we can showcase that we don't just tell you how to do things, we can actually do them as well. So
absolutely. No, good stuff. And again, our goal here at EPICompliance is to help you simplify your compliance processes, make it more efficient, more manageable. I mentioned this earlier, compliance, not a fun subject. It can be complex, but we believe it doesn't have to be overwhelming. And I want to showcase that to you guys in today's presentation with our new online platform and new interface that we recently came out with next Monday. So as of right
recently
now,
came out with next Monday.
last
So it's
Monday.
not live yet, right?
No, it is live. It is live. I said last Monday.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay,
Not
last
next
Monday. Okay.
Monday. It is live as of last Monday. We released our new interface, and so far we're getting great feedback from our customers. And really, the goal is just to make this stuff as user friendly as can be, right?
Absolutely.
And before we dive into the interface, I did want to mention as well. And again, for those of you that have been on these webinars, you probably heard this once or twice. But we also host a in-person conference event. We call it EPIConferences. And in particular, this conference is sort of based around healthcare innovation, healthcare compliance, and sort of the tricks of the trade and what's coming down the pipeline. But one of the exclusives that we offer at this in-person conference is a certified HIPAA security officer training. And it's really a course that is based for compliance officers, business owners that are really looking to gear themselves up and really have a deeper understanding of HIPAA and what all it entails. And as I mentioned, this is an in-person certification that we were hosting, but this is a course that we are working to have in an online format here very shortly. Do have some updates on that. I know I mentioned end of May was sort of the target for this, but we are having slight delays. This is going to be a online proctored certification. So we're sort of working on those kinks right now and finding a proctoring resource. But that is the update for that right now. But we are excited to release that in an online version. Again, we're based out of Jacksonville, Florida, so we understand if you're, if you're all the way in on the western side, it could be quite the travel to make that event and take the training. So we're very proud to be offering this as an online resource very soon. Jose, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything else to that.
No, I mean the boot camp itself, we try to make it a little bit more lively because it's certified. Even though it's HIPAA security information, we try to bring in new court cases, live examples of situations that we've run into in the field, and so that way you can attach what we're trying to teach to application because these laws are not really drawn up in a way that they're interesting to read or learn about. So we do our best to keep it interesting.
Yep, absolutely. And like I said, excited that we're going to be providing that as an online resource here soon. So, but to kick things off, again, I want to share the new interface with you guys. And again, for those of you that may not be EPICompliance customers, this is definitely going to be something new to you. But again, this is something that we released last Monday. And really the goal behind this new interface is to give it more of a sleek and modern look. And we want to provide a seamless user experience for our customers. And in terms of what our program entails, I call it the big four. We cover OSHA for healthcare. We cover HIPAA privacy compliance, HIPAA security compliance, and healthcare billing compliance as well. And the goal is simple. We want to keep all this compliance stuff in one place so that you're not utilizing, we want to be the one all be all solution. So you're not, I've seen organizations, oh, I'm using my HR platform for my HIPAA compliance. I'm using my med waste software for my OSHA compliance. And, those are two different interfaces and, having to add employees under each of those, it can just be hectic, right? So again, we're sort of the one all be all solution. And again, this is our new interface. It's sort of designed to everything's sort of a click button at this point. Our previous interface, and again, we couldn't do it. We couldn't make these changes without our customers' feedback. So again, for those of you that are EPICompliance customers, we appreciate you and your feedback. This has really been helpful in sort of creating this new interface to make processes simple. But as you can see here, this is essentially what the dashboard looks like. And when you're logging in as a user, and really, as you can see, everything's sort of in your face, right? So if you want to go in and take your trainings, you can see you have your enrolled courses right here in front of you. You can see if the status of those trainings as well. As you can see on mine, it says certifications expired. So I need to retake the training. You can see your certificates on this screen. Like I said, everything is sort of accessible now at a click of a button. You don't have to go diving to get where you need to be. So I want to sort of showcase the tools that we
Wait,
offer.
so right, so
Go ahead.
this is the basic user, right? This
This
is
is
my
actually
front
good.
desk person, my
Good,
providers, because for the most part, providers don't really
good point.
do compliance.
Excuse me. This is actually the view of somebody that is the quote unquote compliance officer. So good point, Jose. In terms of the system and usability, this is sort of a permission based system or interface. So there's always going to be at a minimum of one compliance officer assigned at your organization. Again, it's all dependent on size. You know, if you're an organization that, you know, you're a small mom and pop practice, like I said, generally that's going to be the practitioner or perhaps an office manager that'll have these permissions as the compliance officer. Or if you're a larger, mid-sized to larger organization with over 50 employees, you know, there could be multiple administrators involved. But yes, what you're seeing here is somebody that's logged in as a compliance officer. So yes, it looks a little more busy. That's because that person has a little more responsibility.
Yeah,
But
no, it makes sense.
as far as a, you know, if you're a staff member and you're just logging in and take your trainings and stuff, obviously I'm not going to see as much on the screen, but you will see your trainings, because that's going to be the basic requirement as a staff member within your organization, is going in and managing your training, which sort of leads me into the next slide. Again, everything's sort of click button at this point. Previous, the user had to click into compliance training and then they had to access their courses. Like I said, we sort of eliminated the button clicking. And in other words, if you're a basic user, you're logging into the system, your primary responsibility is accessing these courses. So when you log into your dashboard as a basic user, this is what you're going to see, right? Now, as far as the trainings are concerned, we make this process simple, and this is the same process straight across the board. You click on the course that you want to take. There's no particular order, and the process is simple. You start by taking a lecture, which is just a voiceover PowerPoint slideshow presentation of the course. There's no time limit. You can take as much time as you need to complete the lecture. I will say this, if you've taken these trainings before, you can sort of breeze through that lecture. About 2 to 3 seconds in, it will allow you to click next. So don't feel like you have to sit there and watch the entire lecture to get to the test. But ultimately, it will have you complete that lecture first before the test becomes available to you. Now, as far as the test is concerned, it's 10 questions, multiple choice, true or false format. I get this question asked a lot. And maybe some of you are wondering is, you know, is everybody getting the same set of 10 questions? Not necessarily. It is pulling from about a 200 question test pool. So it will be randomized for everybody. I know I get that question. Hey, can everybody do this at once? You know, and we can do it together. And it's not necessarily the case. It's a sort of a self-pace setup. But like I said, it's 10 questions, multiple choice, true or false format. The expectation or the goal was to pass the test. Obviously, a passing score is considered a 7 out of 10 or better to be considered eligible to receive your certificate. And that's really the bread and butter with this process, right? We want everybody to pass the test and obtain their certificate. Now, with these certificates, these are all downloadable PDF documents. You can save them in your personal file. You can print them out for your records. But at the end of the day, everyone's certificates are going to be stored on your EPICompliance account. So somebody like a compliance officer has the ability to go in other words, they have that additional functionality, which we call course management, to be able to pull reports. They can check status on their employees to see where they are at with the trainings. As you can see here on screen, you can see sort of the status options here. Certification expired. We want everybody to be green, right? We want everybody to be certified. And the certificate itself is it's valid for 12 months from that date of completion. And essentially the way the system is, the new interface is set up, the system will start notifying users roughly 60 days before expiration of that certificate to simply remind the user to take the latest version. I believe there's a 60-day notification, there's a 30-day notification, a day before, a day after, and I think 10 days after expiration. But as you can see here on my screen, and this was intentional, you can see that I have some certificates that are expired. So as a user, it's pretty straightforward, right? When I log in, I see that my certification's expired. I want to take the latest version. And it's as simple as going in and simply just taking the latest version and getting your certificates updated. So that's essentially the training aspect in a nutshell. Jose, I don't know if you had anything to add.
No, again, I imagine that is this all users, that's the screen looks like this, or basic users or advanced users or
No matter
administrators
what
look a little bit different.
permission level you have, this is sort of the layout in terms of the courses and how it's presented. And like I said, it's pretty straightforward. It's like I said, everything's
Yeah.
accessible at a click of a button. You go in, you take your course. Once you complete it, like I said, certificate's valid for 12 months from that date of completion, and you don't have to worry about it again until next year.
No, sounds good.
So moving on, another tool that we offer here at EPICompliance is policies and procedures. And I'm sure for those of you that have joined in on some of our webinars, we've probably talked about the importance of having policies, procedures in place at your practice. It's very
Mhm.
integral, and essentially what it boils down to is, it's something that inspectors and auditors are also looking for as well. So we're sort of taking that traditional I can't tell you how many organizations I've spoken with that have some sort of physical manual on premise, which is not a
Yeah,
bad thing. Again, I'm not knocking it whatsoever, but
it's old school.
it's very old school. And really the biggest problem I see with organizations that have physical manuals on site is when it comes to keeping them up to date. That's where a lot of organizations tend to fall short. It's kind of like just the dusty binder on the shelf. It's there. I have it, but I don't touch it otherwise, right? And that's really the biggest importance behind these policies and procedures. They essentially, the federal government, they want to see that you're keeping these policies up to date at a minimum of an annual basis. So think of it this way: on an EPICompliance solution, we are providing these policies and procedures in an online database. And sort of the way we've organized this on the new interface is it's a simple click button. What I have listed here is this is my essentially my OSHA module. So in other words, you can access your forms and policies. You click on the module that you want to access, which again, just to reiterate, it's either going to be OSHA for healthcare, HIPAA privacy, HIPAA security, or healthcare billing compliance policies. You click on the module, you'll see all the policies in relation to the same will pop up here on screen. The beauty about keeping these things online as well. And again, each of these are downloadable PDF documents. Now, we're not asking you to sit here and as a user and download, or as a compliance officer, sit here and download and print every single one of these policies out. I
That'd be a
get that
problem.
I get that question asked, but we don't recommend it. We
Really?
don't suggest it. Why? Because, well, I'll tell you right now, between each of those 4 modules, there's well over 300 policies and procedures that we provide, and not all of them are a single page long. Some of them are 5, 10, 15, 20. I think the longest
Yeah.
one might be 30 pages long. So save the paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep it online. And really the premise behind this, especially when it comes down to inspection, at least from what I've seen, Jose, is they're never, and again, it's all depends on who you're dealing with, obviously, but I've never seen an inspector ask for, hey, can I look at your entire policy manual? It's always going to
They
be
won't.
something specific. Uh,
Yeah, they want to see that you have one. If
right.
it's you are randomly selected, shall we put it, then they just want to see that you have something because they're not going to look at every policy and procedure. If there was an issue, they're going to ask specifically for those policies and procedures. Now, there are certain things that I would always recommend that every practice should modify because these are templates, right?
Mhm.
So they give you
Correct.
all the information that you're going to want in to follow the law. but they're not very specific, and every organization is a little bit different. So yeah, Leah, no worries. You can definitely catch it on the YouTube page.
Yep.
So if you want to listen to it on your drive home or later on while you're working out, whatever the case may be, I know Ray's going to be putting those up pretty quickly.
Yep.
But with the template, you want to go and you want to take a look at, all right, let's use the active shooter. Everybody needs to close the doors. All the patients need to be locked in the exam rooms, and then wait till somebody arrives, or go out the back door. Like there's different ways to structure that depending on where you are. If you're in a hospital, you may not have a door that leads to the exit, so you may have to shelter in place. So
Right.
what kind of situations does that turn into? So there's quite a few of these that I would always recommend. Take a look at them, adjust them as you need to, but use the ones that are on here as a template, so you're covering everything.
No, absolutely. In other words, we're providing the guidelines, right? The standards, and like I said, or like Jose said, you can go in and customize accordingly. And just another, I get this question asked a lot. As a compliance officer, does your staff have access to these policies as well? They absolutely do. Their access level is again a basic level access, but they do have access to view these policies as well. And ultimately, if that comes up in an inspection or an audit, answer is always going to be yes. My staff does have access to these, and
They have to have access,
have
so
to.
you
It's a
need that.
requirement. Yes. So just wanted to clear that up. But Jose, any other questions, concerns?
No, we're good to go.
One more thing I wanted to add is, and again, the premise behind keeping these things in an online format versus a physical format is obviously when it comes down to updates, right? So the beauty about keeping these policies online within your account, your dashboard, EPICompliance is actually taking on that responsibility and keeping these policies up to date for you. Our goal is this, as far as these updates are concerned, we want to keep the compliance officer informed of these updates. If you guys can see it on screen, there's a little bell icon over here, the right hand side, and you'll always see this here at the top right. And essentially, anytime we have any updates on the system, whether it's in relation to a policy or a system update in general, you will see a nice little unread message here. And like I said, you can click on that. Think of it as your message board, but you can go in and see what those updates are. And like I said, that is essentially the area where we want to keep you informed. We have a little, we call it a notification center. So that's where we send all those notifications and updates so that you guys are aware of what's going on. So moving on, I want to move on to another tool. And again, this is another topic that we've discussed in the past, obviously business associate agreements. And for those of you that may be unaware, business associate agreements, very integral and a part of HIPAA compliance. You want to have those agreements in place with your vendors, any independent contractors, anybody that may have access to your patient health information. Just a couple examples just to throw out: your practice management software companies, healthcare attorneys, medical waste companies, medical billing companies. If you have a 1099, whether that's a medical assistant, a nurse
Staffing
practitioner,
agency.
another physician, a staffing agency, again, these are all organizations that may potentially have access to your patient health information. You want to make sure that you have these agreements in place. IT companies is another good example as well. We make this process seamless. And if you guys ever used DocuSign before, which anytime I ask that, I'd say 99.9% of the time I get yes, I've used DocuSign before, but that's essentially what we've modeled this particular process after. In other words, as the compliance officer, you have the ability to send out these agreements electronically through your platform, and it is exactly like DocuSign. We give you access to a business associate agreement template. You simply go in and fill in the fields as to who you want to send the agreement to, and it's going to go to that person's email. Now, I will boast this in terms of when you're sending these agreements out, make sure that you're sending it to the appropriate individual. If it's a larger company, don't send it to a sales rep. Why? They don't have the authority to sign these agreements on behalf of the organization. In
Yeah.
other words, they're going to prolong the process. They're going to shift it to the legal department, and it's just, again, it's simply going to prolong the process. And more than likely, you're not going to get, the response that you're looking for. Ideally, you want to send it to somebody or a contact within that legal department, or if you have a separate somebody in upper management, perhaps, you want to send it to an individual that is authorized to sign these agreements. But like I said, it's a seamless process. For those of you that already have business associate agreements in place, that is perfect. We're not asking you to send out another version to that vendor. That's up to your discretion. Um, Essentially, we only need to have one agreement on file. So we give you the functionality as well to upload any prior agreement that you have in place. It's just a simple drag and drop process. It will ask you to fill in some information regarding that business associate. But like I said, a simple drag and drop process. And really the overall goal for this is to keep all these agreements in one place. And like I said, this is an absolute HIPAA requirement. Um, if there's
It
ever
wasn't important before, it's important
it's
now.
important
Make
now.
sure all of your vendors are this business associate agreement is CYA for every practice, every covered
Right.
entity.
Right.
You need to have one with your vendors so that way, if there is an issue or there becomes an issue, you can hold them accountable. Because in any BAA worth its salt, it's stating that the vendor is going to follow the rules based on the rules that the covered entity has to follow as well. So, for example, change should have been should have an BAA with
Great
every single
example.
HR it's working for. Therefore, they are liable for every single thing that they've done wrong or that wrong has happened to them. And one of them is they need to explain why they don't have multi-factor authentication when that's cybersecurity 101. It's annoying, but everybody's had to go through it with their EHRs. Everybody's got to go through it with more secure systems, so it's absolutely something that you want to make sure you can do, so that way you can hold them accountable. Because not the federal government's going to come after you.
Yes. It's like a chain reaction. It's always going to go back to the provider.
Yeah,
And
so it's your choice.
one more thing to add in terms of this particular process, and Jose, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
as far as these business associate agreements are concerned, once you have these agreements in place, it's one less thing you got to worry about on the EPICompliance side of things. Once you have these agreements in place, there's nothing in the legislation that I've read currently that states that, hey, I got to have them re-sign an agreement the following year and the following year after that.
No, you want to review the business associate
Yes.
agreement every year. And if there is a change, then you need to get the business associates to re-sign the agreement.
Right.
That can cause issues based on, hey, do I really want to sign this thing again? Hey, maybe this new piece that they added in is what makes or breaks the contract. And that's fine. That's as far as the courts are concerned, compliance is the cost of doing business in healthcare in the United States. So if it's going to be the cost of business for covered entities, it needs to be also for the vendors for that are under the same requirements that are holding the same kind of data. So I mean, it's absolutely something that you don't even need to discuss, really. It's either got to happen or it's got to happen.
Good
Um,
point. And Jose, I want to say there was a cutoff year, but I've ran into a couple customers that had agreements that were, I think, older than 2015 or 14. I mean,
yeah.
you absolutely want to have a new agreement at that standpoint, or no?
I mean, I remember that we're in 2020. We're almost halfway through 2024. So if you have any contract that dates back to 2014, it's
It's
time to
advised that you,
renegotiate.
yeah, it's advised that you negotiate.
It's time to renegotiate. Like I don't I mean, I can pretty much bet that if someone has a contract from 2014 that is ongoing, someone's getting screwed.
Good point.
Because things change.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, since
There's
2014,
a
let's
lot.
take a look at this.
It's a lot.
We have had Obama, Trump, Biden, and now we may go back to Trump or we may have Biden for a second term. Like, we're 3 presidents past that point. We're we're a decade past that point. I mean, the pandemic didn't exist. Like, that's, I mean,
A lot
it's
has
a whole
happened.
different era.
Long story short, it's advised that you get an updated contract in place. And like I said, you can utilize a seamless process like this. And like I said, the goal is to simply keep all these things in one place, especially these business
Absolutely.
associate agreements. So, any other questions there, Jose, or anything you'd like to add?
Do I need to have my credit card process? So credit card processing companies
Good
fall under
question, Jennifer.
PCI. That's not a bad question though, Jennifer, because there are conversations about whether if I'm following PCI as a credit card processor, do I need to also follow HIPAA? I haven't seen any court cases that have definitively decided it. However, if you ask me on the healthcare side, I am a clearly a healthcare practice and I'm taking a credit card from somebody, that's patient health information. So yes, although they push back, I won't be surprised. There are going to be certain companies that are more willing to do that than others. So I would kind of test that out. But again, it's one of those things where the federal government writes laws, but they don't realize that they're overlapping with other laws or conflicting with other laws. So then we have to sit here and be like, well, what do we follow? So PCI is HIPAA light, if you will. And that's relatively new. I want to say it was what, 2018, 2019. So it's just the financial version of HIPAA. So you're not too far off one way or the other. They may not have a problem with following through with it because they're already doing it on the PCI. So what's the difference? But definitely, it doesn't hurt to send it to them just in case. Hey, no problem,
Good
Jennifer. I hope
question,
that helped
Jennifer.
a little bit.
So I'm going to move on to sort of the last but most important tool that we offer, and that's going to be our tasking. And really, to sort of give you the long story short, with this particular process and tool, there's certain processes that are ongoing, right? And there's certain forms that the federal government wants to see you documenting as an organization. We are simply providing our customers the templates of these documents. And again, this is only a process that is assigned to the compliance officers, and not something that every staff member is in charge of keeping up with. This is generally appointed to one person within the organization. Again, depending on the size, it could be a multitude. But again, we are providing the blank templates of these documents, and it's the compliance officer's job to simply go in and fill in the blanks. Now, at face value, you probably see this as more work, right? This is just another thing I got to do. We understand that, especially if you're an office manager, a compliance officer trying to do these things, there's obviously, you have much more responsibility involved at the practice. You're like the certified firefighter, you got your hands in everything. But as far as the compliance side of things, listen, we're not, our job is to not overwhelm. And in other words, we don't want to send you 200 of these templates up front and say, hey, you got to fill this out and complete it by the end of the year. Yes, at that point, you're going to be feeling overwhelmed. But sort of the process in terms of how we streamline this, again, this process is ongoing, right? And staying on top of these tasks can be challenging. But with our process, we send out a monthly checklist that highlights certain items we want you to focus on for that month. So we're sort of taking this process and breaking it down on a monthly scale. And from a time management standpoint, it should not take the compliance officer any longer than 20 or 30 minutes of their time a month to go in and complete these tasks. Again, these tasks are not some higher order government official crazy. I got to fill out 20 pages. You know, a lot of this stuff is very cookie cutter, very simple. For example, and apologies, I don't have the example itself to show you on screen. I'm kind of just showing you what it looks like when you're assigned tasks. Everything's sort of at a click button. In other words, on this particular screen, it's asking you to complete a gap analysis. You can simply click into that task and you can click on the form associated, and everything's filled out with your keyboard and mouse. And then there's a simple publish feature, meaning once you completed the task and you're ready to submit it, you publish it. It gets stored on your system and it goes to what we call your document manager, which is simply just a centralized location where all of these tasks that you're going in and completing each month get stored. But in terms of complexity, as I mentioned, a lot of these very simple, very cookie cutter. And each of these tasks, and this is something that we recently added on the new interface, each of these tasks will provide a very detailed instruction on how to complete each task. This was something that we've, again,
This
based
is
off.
something that I requested from. I know I
Yeah.
requested a few of our clients,
Jose
and
requested, and as well as
s-
many clients.
s- so I'll explain for those that haven't quite caught on. Um, Compliance is a pain, and it's hugely time consuming. And it is, as an administrator of an office, I'm spending 40 hours a week putting out stupid little fires. I don't have time for compliance. We run a small organization. So, how do we get buy in on compliance while continuously training? Is by empowering more of our employees to do little things. So, for example, we have one guy that's really IT based. So he's our liaison with the IT people to make sure that IT stuff gets done. So everything IT related goes to him, and then he forwards it and deals with it with the IT company. Everything billing related goes to somebody else. Everything HR related goes to somebody else. So that this way, one, we're kind of specializing within the practice, but two, they're learning about compliance, how important it is. And it helps me out because then I just have to be like, okay, this goes you, this goes you, this goes you. Okay, did you do it? No. Okay, get it done. Hey, did you do it? Yeah, great. All right, let me review it real quick. Hey, Bobby, this isn't quite right. Let's take a look at it together. Cool. Now go punch in the face, be done, and move on to the next thing, right? So this allows for accountability.
Does.
It allows for buy-in. So it's something for this I'm really big. I'm
Really
pretty
takes
excited
the
about.
guesswork out of things as well, because if you're just a practice trying to do it from scratch, I mean, where do you go to get these things? You
Yeah,
got to go to the
yeah,
Health and Human Services Department. You got to go to OSHA, and
yeah.
it's not like
It's
they necessarily explain how to do things in depth. They sort of provide the basics, and they just, hey, here you go. You know,
well, the legislation
um,
usually doesn't even say what needs to be in every policy or every
exact.
procedure. You have to wait for the department that this is punted to supervise to come out with standards, and that's a giant pain in the ass.
I
Anybody
would
that's dealt with HHS or CMS or
I would
oh,
argue that at this point, if you're doing things in house, look into an online solution, because chances are you are behind the eight ball. Because there's just so
there's
many changes and regulations and legislation. It's almost impossible to keep up with
in
unless you're using an online resource.
in my 20 years, anybody short of a hospital doesn't have the resources to do this. And even most hospitals are lost in the weeds with multiple people in their department.
Absolutely.
And you've got to address this one way or the other. So
Good point. And
cool.
really, that's essentially the new interface in a nutshell. And like I said, the long story short, it keeps this system keeps you accountable, as well as it keeps your staff accountable, and it keeps all this stuff in one place for you. And ultimately, what it boils down to, knock on wood, right? If
Yeah.
God forbid you were to deal with an inspection, right? Well, you have a system in place now that is keeping all your documentation in one place. So whatever that inspector is asking for, it's at your fingertips. You know, all these, whether it's the training certificates, whether it's the task, whether it's the business associate agreements, the policies, All this stuff is downloadable PDF. You can print out copies. You can hand it to them. Simple as that. And ultimately, when it comes down to these inspections, at least from what I've seen and experienced, when they see that you're organized, you have a process in place, you're not running around with your head cut off looking
Yeah.
for certain
Yeah.
files, they have a huge tendency to leave you alone. And chances of fines are way lesser than, again, doing things in house. And that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
When they see that you have the documentation, the systems, the organization to back it up, chances are they're not going to go after you. You're going to go after your neighbor next door that, again, doesn't have those systems in place. And I hate to say it, there's still a lot of practices out there that do things in house, that have a multitude of systems that they're using for this and this, but are they truly covered? Or they're just not doing anything. Can't tell you how many practices I've spoken with that don't even know what a business associate agreement is. It's a scary thing. But in other words, don't be that person. There's
Don't be that guy.
There's resources out there for you, like EPICompliance. Like I said, we're here to help, and we're committed to making compliance simple for organizations like yours, by streamlining these process. And again, for those of you that may be EPICompliance customers, I hope this at least gave you a little more insight on a new interface. I know there were some tutorial videos sent out to you and all that good stuff, but hopefully this kind of gave you a better idea. And for those of you that are not with us and maybe looking to make a decision in a compliance solution, we invite you to take the next step with us. Listen, Jose and I were open books. You can always book a demo to see our platform in action. I know I've provided screenshots today, but if you're really interested in taking a deeper dive, Jose or myself will be glad to schedule a demo with you and give you sort of a live tutorial of the system and see if it's a good fit for your organization. If there's any unique requests, if you're looking for something that might be state specific, keep in mind we cover at the federal level for the most part. I know we have added some state legislation here and there ad hoc, but if it's something that's state that you required, we'd love to schedule a meeting and kind of go through those unique requests for you. Perhaps it's something that we can tailor to your needs. So
Jennifer, in regards to your question, I don't print anything out in my office, although there are some things that I download and keep and just build off of. So for example, if there's any breaches, I'll use that same form. Anytime there's a anytime I'm updating antivirus, anti-malware, needles, the OSHA sharps. So I keep that one log rather than redoing it every other month or every quarter or so. So there are definitely certain things that I may download onto my system, onto a system, and then just build off of and then upload at the end of the year. But realistically, I don't currently see a very good reason why any practice should be working on an environment where any one computer is super important, as in like everything should be a dump computer. You should be easily able to replace your computer that you're using every day in your office with another one right off the shelf from Office Max, from Walmart, whatever you need, just because it just makes life so much easier. So I wouldn't print it out, but I have seen people print out like those same logs that I told you, and then they'll just scan it and upload it. It's really whatever is going to be the way that you and your team are comfortable to comply with the law.
There's no right or wrong. It's what you're comfortable with. But again, we always suggest keeping things in online format. Just makes things simpler.
But yeah, I mean, I have a couple of practices that they have printed out every single form, and I felt bad for their printer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many times did it change that toner?
Because every policy should have a form that's attached to the policy, because the policy is what is the rule, and then the procedure is me following through with that rule. internally. So you're looking, it's wild. I mean, just HIPAA alone, you're looking at 200 HIPAA security, you're looking at 280 different measures. Each one has a form attached to that. So I mean, you're looking at 600 pages. So it would be a giant booklet. Um, but it makes sense for certain things to print out as well. Like I could see why you would want to print out the certificates because then I put it in my HR filing cabinet. Just kind of depends. Like, what do you, the whole purpose of a compliance program though is to slot in with how you are currently doing business. An effective compliance program should not upend your business model. It should reinforce it. It may modify it slightly because of certain rules, for example, interactions with patients or patients' families. Who am I giving data to? But it should not hinder your ability to participate in the healthcare industry. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Jennifer, was that helpful?
Cool. Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. Well,
So
any other questions? Concerns, guys?
I was going to say, as mentioned, we're happy to provide tailored recommendations and guidance. And we'd love for you guys to join the growing community of organizations that are benefiting from our simplified compliance solutions. And don't miss out on an opportunity to transform your compliance efforts. Like I said, if you're that organization that's doing things in house, it's not the way to go about things in this day and age. And like I said, we're here to help and help simplify.
So I'll always use this as an example. As a consultant, it's just kind of what we do internally, but a lot of people don't think about it this way. If I'm doing something internally, does that mean that I am doing it for cheaper and better than the market externally could provide? If the answer is no, then I need to find somebody else. If the answer is I don't know, then I need to have some conversations.
Agree.
So a big one is billing in-house and this is one that every couple of years it depends. The yes, no, depends on the specialty, depends on the payers, but you look at it and you're just like, okay, is it worth me going this way or that way? Okay, well, how much does it cost me to do it in-house? Okay, versus how much does it cost me to get a company? What are the pros? What are the cons? You got to know both and you got to do a list so that way you can kind of see what is the best way to go about it. Having a compliance policy and procedure, we've done it for clients individually, completely customized. It usually takes to do it properly 4 to 6 months, and it's obsolete as soon as I print it on paper.
Yep. It's crazy. It's that quick.
And it'll cost you $5,000 because of the amount of time. And I'm still going to use templates for most of this stuff. So, I mean, and that's me as a consultant. Any lawyer, any consultant that tells you no, it is completely customized, every single word. I've got a bridge to sell you.
That's a good
Like
point.
I'm just going to shoot you straight. Everything is done off of a template. We have basic rules. We've set up one template and we keep that template. We may customize it for the client, but the bulk is there because we're still going to use it as the guide rails for what the current client needs it for. This is what you're doing with it,
Exactly.
with something like that. So know what you're paying for, know how much it costs you to do it, so that way you leverage them and you can maximize your resources.
Absolutely. And if this is a resource you're interested, as I mentioned, if you have any further questions or would like to follow up, please don't hesitate. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We could provide those details to you and all that good stuff. So, but no, Jose, I appreciate you being on this, and Jennifer, appreciate your time as well and your questions. I hope we clarified much for you.
Yep. What's next
So
week's topic?
yes, next week's topic. So next week we're going to be interviewing Brad Ward. He is a partner of ours. He owns iShredaway, and they essentially do data shredding. And
That
we're
makes
going to be
sense.
talking about offsite storage, how to cut costs, simplify admin work, and talk about sort of the document management side of things with that. So we're excited to interview him. This will be our first interview with him, and I'm looking forward to it. And hope to see you guys on that one as well. Obviously, shredding is a important factor when it comes to compliance.
Yep.
um,
Every couple of years, it's time for a big shred.
yep. And you want to have the right vendor and the right process for that as well. So I'm hoping that Brad Ward can shed some light on that some more, and I'm looking forward to our interview with him. So, but again, I appreciate everybody's time. This video and this recording will go up on our YouTube channel. Please give us a follow, give us a like. I just posted our YouTube channel here in chat. If you are joining here for the first time, please take a look. I mean, we've been doing these webinars since September of last year, so there's plenty of topics. Maybe there's something in particular you're looking for. I can guarantee you at this point we probably discussed it. If you guys
Yeah.
have any other topics you'd like us to perhaps go over, something that's going on in today's healthcare world, ideally we like it to be compliance related, let us know. We're certainly open to having those discussions. But anyways, Jose, again, I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Everyone, I appreciate your time for being here. And look out for that registration link. It should be going out sometime tomorrow around lunchtime to register for next Tuesday's event. So I hope to see everyone there, and we'll chat soon.
Cool. See you then.
Take care, Jose. Appreciate it.